I remember the day Timi's father came to the school shouting my name like a mad wind. His voice shook the whole compound. Children ran, teachers hid, dust rose from the ground, and little Timi stood behind me, shaking so hard that I could feel it through my dress. That was the moment I knew this boy was carrying a heavy load that a child should never carry. That was the moment my heart refused to rest. But before that day, before the shouting and fear, Timi was just the quiet boy with the broken slipper. Every morning I stood by the classroom door, greeting the children as they came in. They always rushed in, laughing and pushing each other. But Timi moved slowly, like his legs were tired. He held his bag with two hands like it was full of stones, and he always dragged that left leg because of the broken slipper. The strap was weak and almost falling off. The children made fun of him. They called him all sorts of names, but he never talked back. He never cried. He just bent his head and walked to the back seat. I used to think it was just poverty. Many children in that school wore slippers that were old or too small. But one thing bothered me. Every time Timi sat down, he bent his head under the table and touched something inside the broken slipper. His hand would stay there for a few seconds. At first, I thought he was scratching his foot, but then I saw small folded paper or money going into the torn part, and I became curious. One morning, we were taking morning reading when I noticed him holding his left foot tighter than usual. Anytime another child passed by his seat, he moved his leg away quickly like he was hiding a secret. That was the first time I felt something was wrong. During break time that day, I watched him. Other children ran to the snack cellar to buy Puff Puff and biscuits. But Timi sat alone under the mango tree. He placed his foot on the broken slipper like he was guarding treasure. His eyes were always moving, checking who was looking at him. When school closed, he was the last to stand up from his chair. He sat there waiting for everyone to leave. I saw him bend down, remove the broken slipper, and bring out a small amount of money. He counted it with speed, pushed it back inside, and wore the slipper again. That night, I could not sleep. Something in my chest kept telling me that this boy was not just poor. He was hiding from something. Or someone. The next morning, I decided to talk to him. As he entered the class, dragging that same broken slipper, I knelt beside him and asked gently if he needed help to fix it. Immediately, his face changed. Fear spread across his eyes like fire. He shook his head so fast it shocked me. He pulled the slipper closer to his body, like someone trying to protect a baby. That was when I knew for sure. This was not about a broken slipper. This was about survival. And something inside me told me that if I did not pay attention, if I ignored it the way others did, something bad would happen to this child. And I was right. But I did not know how right I was until the day his father stormed the school, calling my name and dragging trouble behind him. The day after I saw fear all over Timi's face because of that broken slipper, I began to watch him quietly. Not in a way that would make him scared, but in a careful way that let me see things other teachers did not notice. Children talk loudly, children laugh loudly, but children also hide things loudly sometimes, and Timi's silence was louder than the whole class. That morning during classwork, he sat with his head bent low. His pencil moved slowly. His writing was always neat, small, and careful, like someone who did not want to take too much space in the world. But that day, his hand shook each time he lifted it. The broken slipper stayed under his desk, and he kept one foot pressed against it like he was guarding gold. When we finished the lesson, I walked between the rows, checking their books. Anytime I stepped close to his seat, he stiffened. His back straightened. His eyes dropped. I could see his chest rising fast. I touched only the top of his book, not his slipper, not his leg. But still, fear rolled off him like heat. During break, I sat inside the class instead of going to the staff room. I wanted to see his pattern. He walked slowly to the mango tree again. Other children were laughing and eating, but Timi only watched them. He did not stand too close. He stayed at the edge, like someone afraid that joy could spill on him and cause trouble at home. When he finished his break, he came back to class. But something happened that day that made my heart squeeze inside me. 3 boys from his class ran in before him, laughing and kicking chairs. One of them mistakenly kicked Timi's broken slipper as he walked in. The slipper flew a little, and Timi let out a sharp sound. He dropped to the floor immediately, grabbed the slipper and pressed it to his chest like someone rescuing a wounded friend. The boys laughed even more. But when I stood up and looked at them, they ran outside. Timi did not stand immediately. He stayed on the floor, holding the slipper with both hands. His mouth was shaking. He looked like a child who feared the world would end because that slipper moved from where he kept it. I walked toward him slowly. I did not touch him. I just knelt nearby so he would know I was there. After a long moment, he stood up and wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He did not look at me. He just moved back to his seat and placed the slipper under the desk again with careful hands. Later that afternoon, when school closed, I followed him from a distance. Not too close, not too far. I watched him walk down the street. His steps were small and fast. Every few seconds, he looked behind him like he was checking if someone was coming. But the part that stayed in my mind was what happened when he reached the corner near the small provision store. He stopped. He bent down. He pulled the broken slipper close, opened the torn part with his fingers, and checked the money inside. After confirming it was still there, he closed it and continued walking. He was not checking for comfort. He was checking for safety. A child that age should not walk like someone carrying a secret that could destroy his life. Right there on that dusty street, I made up my mind. I would find out the truth. But I did not know that the truth was already walking toward the school, growing bigger and louder every day. I did not know that the danger that made this boy hide money in a broken slipper was already preparing its own storm. And the first sprinkle of that storm came the next week, when a cry from the gate made every teacher turn their head. The cry from the gate that afternoon was sharp and angry, the kind of cry that warned the whole school that trouble had entered. I was marking their classwork when I heard it. My heart picked the sound before my ears understood it. Something in me said it had to do with the quiet boy who always guarded a broken slipper. I walked out of the classroom and saw people rushing toward the gate. Some children were peeping from behind the water tank. 2 teachers stood near the staff room pretending not to be shaken, but their faces told another story. When I moved closer, I saw him. A man with red eyes and shaky legs, yelling at the security man. His shirt was dirty, his belt was half loose, his steps were not steady. And even before anyone told me, my spirit whispered that this was Timi's father. He kept shouting that his son must come out. He said the boy was disrespecting him. He said the boy was hiding money. He said many things, but none of them made sense. The children standing nearby ran as soon as he turned toward them. His anger filled the whole compound like smoke. I searched the crowd for Timi. I found him standing at the back of the line of pupils who had gathered. His small body was shaking. His hands were shaking. His eyes were begging me to protect him, even though he could not find the courage to speak. I walked straight to him first. I touched his shoulder gently so he would know I was there. Then I stepped forward and stood between him and the man who had stormed the gate. The man looked at me with eyes that were tired and wild at the same time. He tried to push past me to grab Timi, but I stood firm. His smell told me everything I needed to know. He had been drinking since morning, and he wanted the boy for one thing alone: money. The security man blocked him again, telling him to calm down. But the more we talked, the more he shouted. He mentioned that the boy had refused to give him the money his mother gave him for food. He said he searched everywhere at home but did not find anything. When he said those words, something clicked in my mind like a switch. The broken slipper, the fear, the hiding, the panic whenever anyone came near his foot. Everything made sense. I looked back at Timi. His head was down, but his tears were falling freely. His hands pressed against the broken slipper, even though he was not wearing it at that moment. He had tucked it under his arm while waiting for closing time. It was like he believed the slipper had more power to protect him than any adult in his life. I knew then that this was not something I could ignore. So I faced his father fully and told him to leave the school. My voice was steady, even though my heart was beating fast. He shouted again, but the head teacher had already called the welfare officer we worked with. The security man made him step back. Teachers were now standing in groups watching, pretending they were not listening, but every ear was on us. The man finally left the gate area, grumbling and swearing as he staggered down the street. But I knew he would come back. I could feel it in the air. I could feel it in the way Timi held onto that broken slipper like his whole life was tied to it. After the commotion, I took Timi back to the empty classroom. He sat on his chair. His face was wet. His shoulders kept rising and falling. I knelt beside him. I did not speak for some time. I waited for his breathing to slow down. When it did, he looked at me with eyes that carried fear, sadness, and something else. Something like relief. That was the moment he finally opened his mouth to tell me why he hid money inside that broken slipper. But before he spoke, before the truth came out fully, I already knew that this story was deeper than hunger or poverty. It was a story of a child fighting to survive inside a house that was supposed to protect him. And the worst part was that the danger was not finished. The man had left the gate. But the storm he brought with him was only just starting to grow. When the classroom became quiet again, I sat beside Timi and waited. He held the broken slipper in his hands like someone holding a secret that was too heavy for a child. His fingers moved over the torn part again and again. He did not look at me at first. He kept his eyes on the floor. His breathing was slow but deep, like someone trying to push down tears that wanted to rise. I told him he was safe in the school. Not with big words, just simple ones. And finally, he began to talk. His voice was small, almost like it was afraid of the air. He told me that every morning before he left home, his father stood near the door waiting. The man checked his pockets. He checked his bag. He even checked inside his shirt. If he found money, he took it. If he did not find anything, he shouted. Sometimes he hit him. Sometimes he threw his book on the floor. And every time it happened, his mother cried quietly but could not stop it. Timi told me his mother always gave him small money to buy food in school. The woman tried to hide it, but the father always found a way to take it. One day, the mother gave Timi the money before the father woke up, but the man caught them. That day, he warned the boy that if he ever hid money from him again, he would do something worse. After that warning, Timi became a child who lived inside fear. He said he discovered the broken slipper by mistake. One day, the strap tore, and he pushed it back into place. He saw a small pocket of space inside the rubber. The next day, he put his feeding money inside it to test it. When his father checked him that morning, he found nothing. For the first time, Timi kept his food money. The relief was so big that he almost cried. From that day, the broken slipper became his hiding place. He refused to fix it. He refused to wear another one. The torn part that other children laughed at was the only safe place he had in the whole world. As he talked, I watched his face. I saw the years of fear sitting inside a child who had not even lived long enough to understand the world. I saw the tiredness in his eyes. No child should know that kind of tiredness. When he finished talking, he wiped his face with his sleeve. I wanted to hold him, but I did not. I just placed my hand on the table near him so he knew he was not alone. The next day, I went straight to the head teacher. I explained everything I had seen and heard. She listened without interrupting me. Her face was tight, full of worry. She agreed that we needed to call the welfare officer. Not later. Not next week. That same day. We needed to step in before the father returned to the school again. This time, maybe with more anger than sense. The welfare officer arrived just before closing time. We sat her down. We told her everything. She asked for details, for the boy's address, for the mother's name. She wrote everything down. She said she would visit the house quietly, without making noise, without creating a scene that could make things worse. That afternoon, when I dismissed the class, I watched Timi walk home. His steps were still small. He still held the broken slipper close, but something else had changed. He looked back at me twice. Not in fear, in hope, in a small, shy trust. I wanted to believe the storm was calming, but deep inside I knew better. Sometimes storms do not end when you expect. Sometimes they pretend to stop, only to rise again in the night when everyone is asleep. And that was the fear that stayed with me as I watched him disappear down the dusty road. The welfare officer arrived at the house early the next morning. I stayed behind the gate, watching from a distance while she moved inside quietly. Timi walked behind me, holding the broken slipper close to his chest. He did not say a word. He did not need to. I could feel every ounce of fear in him. Inside the small room, the officer spoke with the mother. I could not hear their words, but I could see the tension rise and fall like waves. The mother nodded, wiped her eyes, and reached for Timi's hand. He stiffened, then let her hold it. That was the first small victory of the day. The officer then stepped outside to call us in. We went inside, and I finally met the mother properly. She was thin, her clothes worn, but her eyes carried strength that had survived years of quiet suffering. She told the officer everything, about the father's drinking, about the beatings, about the stolen money, about the fear in her son's eyes each time the man came home. The officer listened without interrupting, writing everything down carefully. When it was time, she spoke to the father. He tried to deny, to shout, to intimidate, but the officer was firm. The words she said were heavy and serious. She warned him that if he touched the boy again, there would be consequences he could not escape. She gave him rules he had to follow. I saw his face pale. For once, he was quiet. After the officer left, the house felt lighter, though the fear had not completely disappeared. Timi's mother hugged him and whispered something into his ear. He held on to her as if she was the only anchor in a storm. I watched them from the doorway. A small relief had entered the house, but the memory of the terror lingered. At school the next day, I waited at the gate with a new pair of slippers. Timi looked at them carefully. He bent down, touched the straps, and then looked at me. Slowly, he let me help him put them on. His steps were hesitant at first, but he walked forward without dragging his leg. I could see a shadow of a smile form on his face. It was tiny, but it was there. During break, he joined the other children under the mango tree. He sat with them, shared Puff Puff, and laughed quietly. The other kids noticed. Some stared, some whispered. But Timi did not care. His eyes were lighter now. He did not hide. He did not clutch anything to his chest. For the first time, he played without fear, without hiding money, without worrying about his father coming to take it all. I stood by the classroom window, watching. I knew life would not be perfect. The father might try again. The house might still hold shadows. But that small boy with the broken slipper had learned something that no amount of fear could take away. He had learned that someone could fight for him. Someone could protect him. And for a child, that was enough to make the world feel like a little brighter place. When the final bell rang, Timi left school walking steadily. His head was held up. He did not look back. And I understood that sometimes all it takes is one safe hand, one quiet act of care to change the course of a child's life forever.